Alrighty, hello. Today is February 16th, 2025, and I'm recording this at 10:14 p.m. By the time this episode is live, it will be February 17th, and it's a really big unknown for when you will hear it. So my hope is that whenever you do hear this recording, there's something here that resonates for you. There's something here that helps you feel less alone, and that there's some insight to help you feel more empowered to face the week ahead. The way this goes is I will pull a card and I will share how I would interpret this card. Perhaps something resonates, and then I might share a story or anecdote to kind of go along with the lesson of that card. And I am shuffling the Tarot of the Secret Forest. This deck was published in 2005. It is dual-sided. One side is in color, and the other side is in monochrome or black and white. And when pulling these cards, if the side that is in color shows up, it's talking about our relationships with the outside world. So with family members, friends, systems, work, job, career, and so forth. When the card is in monochrome or in black and white, it is having us look at ourselves and our relationship to ourselves. All right. Two cards have come up. We have the Tower in reverse. So it is, instead of the character falling down, she's falling up or flying. She actually has wings in this deck. She's a fairy. And so the visual is her like flying out of the ashes, rising again like a phoenix. So that is the reversed position. She is internally facing, so she's in monochrome or black and white. So this card really is about overcoming something inside of ourselves. So there may have been, often what the Tower speaks to me about is like, it's not just destruction of a certain idea or a certain situation, but it is a destruction of a belief, of like an internal belief of how we saw ourselves in the world. When that happens, I've experienced it kind of like a shattering. It shatters my view of the world. Wow, I thought the world was one way, but really it's a different way. The fact that this card is internally facing is the shattering that occurred was an internal illusion, an internal quality or belief that we might have had about ourselves that is shattered. And then we are now rising out of that illusion. After having dealt with the aftermath, we can now move past it, arise out of it. The second card to show up is the 10 in the Major Arcana, which is the wheel, and it's in reverse. By the way, if you're listening and you have your own tarot deck, I encourage you to pull these two cards and sit with and contemplate them for yourself. So we have, I'll repeat it again, the Tower in reverse, which is number 16. We also have the wheel in reverse, which is number 10. The wheel in reverse is externally facing. So it's about how we are relating to the outside world. The wheel often is seen as kind of like the Wheel of Fortune. That's the traditional view of this card, where, hey, we don't know how things are going to unfold in this moment. And in this deck, what's really fascinating is it's not a wheel of chaos. It's not a wheel of the unknown. It's actually the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. So in this card, we have a caterpillar on one side of a beautiful flower. There's a caterpillar on one side, and then there's a cocoon across from it. And then up above, sitting on the flower, is a beautiful fairy with wings. And this card represents that metamorphosis from caterpillar to larvae to cocoon to metamorphosis to transformation, and kind of this breaking free, liberating ourselves from kind of that internal cooking, self cooking quality. And what's interesting is that this card is in reverse. So when it's right side up, it's kind of understanding that we all have to go through these cycles, that these cycles of life, death, and rebirth, these are natural cycles of life in the world. And this card showing up in reverse in relation to the world is kind of like our inability to see the cycles, how we may be so, our view of reality might be so close, like it's so present in our consciousness. We're only thinking in the last like 5 to 10 years. We don't see how there's a bigger cycle occurring. There's a bigger cycle, like a planetary cycle that's occurring. And so this card is like us being perhaps unwilling to see a bigger picture, unwilling to consider that there's a larger kind of experience occurring. The cycles that we see, the cycles that we acknowledge as part of life, perhaps we've had too narrow of a view on it, that maybe we were looking at it only about ourselves and not about, the world at large, the fact that we're part of a larger global system. So, yeah, these cards are interesting. So if we're unwilling to see that there's a bigger picture going on, maybe that's the question. So if the tower is us kind of ascending out from these internal illusions, coming to grips with it, the next thing is to step back and take a look at the landscape of what's going on in the world from a broader lens. You've already done the work of cutting through your own internal illusions. You've already done the work of detangling yourself from beliefs and identities that did not serve you and were not true. So now it's time to look and apply that same effort and work onto the bigger picture, onto kind of the external world. It feels very odd to say these things in this moment because of, how I personally am seeing and being impacted by the political things that are going on in the world, particularly in the United States. But the cards are saying you've already broken down the illusions of how you view yourself, and you've affirmed that truth. Now's the time to apply that same point of view or that same approach to the world, and inviting in the question of how can this be a gift for me? How can this be a gift for the collective? How can this moment, this experience, this time be a gift? Not an easy question to answer. Admittedly, I have to ask that question myself. These are just the cards that came up. This is not, hey, I think everyone should believe this. And I will caveat by saying that a tarot reading is part cards and part reader. And my own personal biases, politics, point of view on the world is going to influence how I read. So that's another reason why I posted recently my personal and political values, so that whoever gets a reading from me can see and determine, like, if I'm looking at the world through that lens, does that resonate with you? Does that align to you? And so with that, I will respect and say, respect the cards and respect you listening and say, this is what my cards are telling me. And she usually says the things that we need to hear. And that is an invitation to apply our inner work that we've been doing to the outer world and step back and see if we can hold this moment and see if it could be that this is actually a gift for us. There's good that will come from this, I guess. Yeah, I think that's what it is. There's good that will come from this, and that it's a choice to believe that. And again, I say that because I am also struggling with how to hold what's going on in the world right now and how to navigate through it. And this is what the cards have been telling me this whole time. Keep doing the work, the inner work, the outer work. I get more and more affirmation and confirmation that small communities is where we need to be. I've recently joined the Elemental Shop as part of their collective, and I read tarot there in person on Sundays. I also go live on their Instagram on Sundays, usually for about 15 to 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending. And that's been a really fun place to be. So you can tune in live, catch me on Sundays. Again, the Elemental Shop, I'll link in the description below. I'm also open to having you book one-on-one readings. You can do that through my website. It's called wisepathtarot.com. Some things that I'm working on. So one thing that I will get started on soon is writing the spring issue of Witchery magazine. And so if you have any ideas of what you would like me to include in that issue, I'm happy to hear your interests. So if there's something in particular you want to read about or get perspective on or hear about, please let me know. This podcast, if you're listening, please like and subscribe so you don't miss another episode. If you have any questions on anything that I've mentioned, please feel free to email me at alicia@wisepathtarot.com, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon. Take great care of yourself.